The fact that they're holding a golf outing less than 50 miles from the backyard of Ground Zero is disturbing. But for him to say that nobody ever got to the bottom of this.
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11.
Donald Trump, you're a piece of shit. That's the bottom line. And I am dumbfounded. Take the politics out of this. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Stop. Just stop the madness. This man is all about himself. He does not care about anybody. I don't even think he cares about his own kids. And he just cares about him and money. And the fact that the Saudi Arabians are in New Jersey, right next door to the most horrific day in the history of this country, I can't believe what I'm watching in 2022. And for the golfers who have been disingenuous and saying, you know, I'm doing it for this reason, you're doing it for the money. And the PGA gave them a good living and gave them a wealthy lifestyle. And again, greed. It seems the further we get away from 9/11, everybody just wants to be greedy. There's no more morals and no more principles. There's no more values. And it's every man for himself. And it starts with Donald Trump, and it starts with the Saudis in New Jersey, and it starts with the GOP Senate. And listen, I take my shots at Democrats too. I'm not all about just going after Republicans. So, you know, Chuck Schumer's on notice right now.
This man's name is Rick Feal, a 9/11 first responder, and he had strong words for the former president.
How did you go towards danger?
I cried. I was in awe. You know, I was up in Nanuet when the towers came down. I drove across the Drags Neck Bridge, and I stopped, and there was nobody on the road. And I wish I had a cell phone with a camera then, because I looked from the Drags Neck Bridge what was going over Lower Manhattan. And when I got there, 12, 13, 14 hours later, if you weren't humbled by what you saw, then you just weren't human.
This is quite a quote, because if you do remember, there is definitely one person who chose gloating over everything.
40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in downtown Manhattan, and it was actually, before the World Trade Center, was the tallest. And then when they built the World Trade Center, it became known as the second tallest, and now it's the tallest.
Did you hear any grief there? That was on 9/11. And it wasn't grief that the president felt today when he got off Air Force One in Pennsylvania to attend the 9/11 commemoration of Flight 93 that takes place there every year. There is only one president in our history who could arrive at such a solemn and tragic commemoration and behave as if he was arriving at a rally. Donald Trump has attended the 9/11 commemoration services in his hometown of New York City only once, in 2016, when he was running for president.
Rick Feal has been a tireless worker, fighter, and activist, basically telling the government, hey, these people gave their lives for the country. First responders gave up their lives to help out their fellow Americans. Do something. Help them. Provide for them. He has been doing this for years and years and years. And he is hoping to make a change.
I know there are people out there suffering and need help. And I know the government continues to fail those good people. You know what I learned in 15 years? And I'm really not that bright of a guy. That first responders and those in the military are expendable. My God, when they go to combat, or when they go into a fire, or they get into a shootout, and they can no longer serve their country or their city or their state, we are so quick to kick them to the curb and throw them out like garbage. And that's just not the way I was raised. You know, I don't need 9/11 to know right from wrong. I needed 9/11 to show everybody how my mother raised me. And if my mother was alive, she'd probably smack me in the back of the head for cursing. But she'd also say, good job. You took it to them, and you didn't back down. And you had some really cool friends along the way.
Vanity Fair wrote of Feal, himself a 9/11 survivor who'd lost half his left foot when an 8,000-pound steel beam fell on it during the rescue efforts at Ground Zero. It took years for Feal to recover from that injury. In some ways, he has never recovered, but he harnessed his pain and his rage and a hidden talent for political strategy and turned them into a weapon on behalf of the cops and firefighters and World Trade Center workers and downtown school kids suffering and dying and being denied adequate government help.
Behind me, a filled room of 9/11 first responders, and in front of me, a nearly empty Congress. Sick and dying, they brought themselves down here to speak to no one. It's shameful. None of these people want to be here, but they are, and they're not here for themselves. They're here to continue fighting for what's right. Lou's going to go back for his 69th chemo. The great Ray Pfeiffer would come down here, his body riddled with cancer and pain, where he couldn't walk. And the disrespect shown to him and to the other lobbyists on this bill is utterly unacceptable.
Feal and Stewart had first teamed up in 2010 when Senate Republicans were stalling approval of a major set of healthcare and benefit programs. Feal chose 4 sick first responders to appear with Stewart on a Daily Show episode. The shaming worked, according to Vanity Fair. 6 days later, Mitch McConnell caved and $4.2 billion was appropriated. Then, as of this article, in 2019, the funding was evaporating again, even as the rolls of the sick kept growing. Feal and his colleagues had made hundreds of lobbying trips to D.C. over the years.
The official FDNY response time to 9/11 was 5 seconds. 5 seconds. That's how long it took for FDNY, for NYPD, for Port Authority, for EMS, to respond to an urgent need from the public. 5 seconds. Hundreds died in an instant. Thousands more poured in to continue to fight for their brothers and sisters. The breathing problem started almost immediately, and they were told they weren't sick, they were crazy. And then, as the illnesses got worse and things became more apparent, well, okay, you're sick, but it's not from the pile. And then, when the science became irrefutable, okay, it's the pile. But this is a New York issue. I don't know if we have the money. And I'm sorry if I sound angry and undiplomatic, but I'm angry. And you should be too, and they're all angry as well. And they have every justification to be that way. There is not a person here, there is not an empty chair on that stage that didn't tweet out, "Never forget the heroes of 9/11. Never forget their bravery. Never forget what they did, what they gave to this country." Well, here they are. And where are they?
Recently, the PACT Act was expected to clear a procedural hurdle and then pass the full Senate in the next few days so Joe Biden could sign it. But more than 24 Republicans who initially supported the legislation switched their votes and prevented it from quickly moving forward. The Senate voted 84-14 for the bill in June, but after some technical corrections were made, the legislation was sent back and needed to pass again. The measure removes the burden on veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars to prove an illness is related to exposure to toxins. But this time, the legislation got support from only 55 senators, failing to reach the 60-vote threshold to advance bills and overcome filibusters. In the months since the PACT Act first passed the Senate, 25 Republicans flipped their votes and prevented the bill from moving forward. Republicans said they took issue with the funding and want to make a change to the bill before passing it. The PACT Act seeks to expand benefits for veterans and service members by establishing a presumption of service connection for 23 illnesses that may have developed from their time of service due to burn pit smoke and other toxins. Burn pits were used by the military in Afghanistan and Iraq to dispose of trash and other waste. According to the group, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, there are an estimated 3.5 million vets in the U.S. who have been exposed to burn pits and toxic exposure. Feal has dedicated his life to helping others that served. And all that he wants out of Republicans is a yes vote, so that they will aid more funding to these people that badly need it.